Hello, can you hear me?
Hello, yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Anyone else who loves Tove Lo's new music?
I just
Yes.
said to Vanessa that I saw her on Lollapalooza this summer, and I was showing her videos when the music went on.
Yeah.
Oh, I love her so much. She's gonna tour. She's gonna tour this winter, actually. It feels like I'm promoting her now. This is not what we're gonna talk about. A warm welcome, everyone who's here. We are a small crowd today, but it's very cozy too. And yeah, you have come to Technigo's webinar about changing career to tech. And it's a panel talk with Vanessa, Lovisa, Henrike. And we're basically going to talk about changing career to tech. And I have already prepared some questions, but you who are watching, you can also ask questions. And we would encourage you to do so. And you do it in either the chat or the Q&A. You will find the button somewhere down here. And I think you can do it anonymously as well. So please do so like whenever you feel like it. We will I will take a look in between. So, and I can just tell you also, we cannot see you who are participating in this webinar, and we cannot hear you. So you just relax, drink your coffee, eat lunch, or whatever you do at this time. We're just happy that you're here and want to join this webinar. Cool. My name is Rebecca. I work here at Technigo. I have a super fun job. I'm hosting these webinars and live events, and yeah, have a close contact to our community. And I can show the world how fun it is with coding. I have a background within marketing, but also coding. But today I mainly do this. So we're gonna introduce you, Vanessa, Lovisa, and Henrike. Just briefly tell us who you are and what you're working with today, and maybe what you did before your change. And Vanessa and Lovisa, you are sitting together, so you can start.
Yeah, sure. Do you want to go first?
Okay. So I'm Vanessa. I'm right now working as a full stack developer consultant at a company called Axacon. I've been working here for a year and a half now. I work for a client called MobileLearn, where we develop an educational tech app. So you can build courses to give to employees or anyone you want to and share some knowledge there. Before working as a developer, I worked for 11 years as a chef. So I have a lot of experience in the restaurant business. But after all that time, I really want to do something different. I originally studied graphic design when I was still living in Panama. I'm originally from Panama. I've been living in Sweden for 5 years. So yeah, when I wanted to reconnect to that creative side, I decided to do a career change. So I was looking for educations that would help me build my web development skills, my programming skills. So that's when I found Technigo. And I did the boot camp on the fall of 2020 in the middle of the pandemic. So yeah, I built up my skills, my portfolio, got a lot of help from Technigo career coaching program, and built my CV, started to apply for jobs. And 3 weeks after my graduation, I started my first role as a developer here. So that's what I've been doing now.
Yay! And next year you have Lovisa, and you work together. Like you have to tell. I mean, you are probably at work right now.
Yeah, we
and you have to tell your connection to each other as well.
Yeah, yeah, we're colleagues, and just as Vanessa, I also did the Technigo boot camp. I did it in fall 2021, so like exactly 1 year after Vanessa. So I've been like walking in our footsteps. Yeah, and it's so weird to think about. Like it was like 1 year ago, I was a month into the boot camp, and now I'm sitting here with Vanessa, and I worked for 7 months as a developer. It's crazy, but I originally worked within the call center business. I worked pretty much as a project lead. I was participating in a lot of like technical implementations, but nothing with coding to do. Like I was just the one holding meetings and presentations and pitching. And that was actually how I stumbled across JavaScript, because we had an implementation that was built upon JavaScript, and I was like, what is this? I want to know more. And that's how I found courses through like Tjejer Kodar, and that's also how I found Technigo and applied to that. And then after the graduation in February, Tobias, who works as a HR manager here at Axacon, he reached out to me and asked if I was interested in an opportunity and wanted to have an interview. And I knew that Vanessa was working here because I connected with her already through the community. So I was like, of course, I want to have an interview and know more about this consultancy firm. So yeah, that's it. And the rest is history. I work for a government, so that's what I do. Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. So you ended up together on the same company.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. And Henrike, tell us about you.
Yes, hello. I'm Henrike. I'm also a Technigo alumni. I did the bootcamp at the same time as Vanessa in fall 2020. And since 1.5 years back, so like right after the bootcamp, I work as a developer at Uppsala University. So I'm located in Uppsala, and I work in the field of bioinformatics, even though I have zero background in bioinformatics. I just ended up here. And we basically, I do front-end development, so I do websites, and we are kind of like a consultancy for researchers all over Sweden that need help with web applications, websites, or other things. So I build websites for researchers, basically. That's what I do.
Really cool. What did you do before?
Yeah, before I was a journalist. I studied science journalism like 10 years back or so, and had worked as a science journalist for a couple of years, both for media in Sweden and in Germany, where I'm from originally. So I was a freelance mostly, and did both radio and newspaper stuff as a journalist. But I was curious about coding, so that's and I'm happy
really
I switched.
Cool. I mean, on the topic of also maybe coming from another country, or like, do you work, like, do you have English in your work all the time, or not at all?
We work completely in English because our team, we're like around 15 developers, and maybe a third is Swedish or so. So it's very mixed, it's very international. And I mean, the research community is very international in general. So everything is just in English. And then only as soon as we realize that, oh, everyone in this little meeting actually speaks Swedish, then we switch to Swedish. But as soon as anyone is not comfortable having meetings, or maybe having a fika in Swedish, like a coffee meeting, but maybe not a work meeting, and then everyone switches to English. So that's the main work language here.
Is it the same at Axacon?
I think here it varies a bit, because since it's a consultancy, we have different clients. So for example, my client, we work in English, is an international product, so it's easier to work in English for everything. But for example, your product is in Swedish.
Yeah, it's a Swedish government, so we speak Swedish within our project because we're all speaking Swedish. But like when everything in the office is English, since Vanessa is speaking English, so every coffee break, every lunch should be English. And if someone speaks Swedish, like they forget to speak English, we just remind each other to speak English to just include everyone.
Oh, that's nice. Okay, so I want to know, we already touched upon that as well, but like, how did you ended up, like, why did you choose to study development? Like, why did you want to start programming? I mean, for all of you, it's been a big switch. You talked about it, Lovisa, that you already met some people at work that programmed.
Yeah, well, the thing is that in my my previous job, I was mostly working as a project lead, but I had a very broad definition in my role. I work like an operational innovation manager, which is very hard to grasp what that actually is, but I was project leading as well as a lot of analysis. So and I also led a lot of technical implementations, but I don't have any technical background myself. But by project leading technical implementations and through analysis, you like the interest grows a lot when you see like this stuff behind everything. Because I was working with the digital assistant, like chatbots that was built up on JavaScript and AI. And when I saw like the background and the like logic behind it, I thought it was really interesting, because my job was consisting a lot of problem solving. And when you look at coding, that's what it is, it's problem solving. Even if I don't have any had any knowledge in programming, it was still like the experience I had with problem solving came really handy when I was looking at the code. And I think that was the thing that like sparked my interest. Because I really like to work as a specialist, like just digging, just sitting alone, solving stuff. And I was working very communicative with like clients and pitching, and I like that stuff too, but that's just some extra things I like to do. I want to do like the hands-on problem solving and being like creative. So that was my journey, finding programming.
Your way in. How about you, Vanessa?
Oi. So before leaving Panama, I studied graphic design. I always like visuals, colors, and drawing things. But moving to Europe, I couldn't really work as a graphic designer. That's when I started to work in restaurants. But yeah, after all the time I spent in restaurants, I really wanted to do something creative again. That's more challenging. But at that point, I didn't want to do just design. I wanted something a bit more complex. And it was actually my brother who told me, like, you could look into front-end development. And I didn't know what that was. So I started to read about it, and I saw how it's you need to have a good notion of design, but you also need to learn programming. And I thought programming could be something for me, because my brain is really logical thinking, problem solving brain. So I started to do some free courses just to try it out. And I started to build my own website. So I started with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And I loved it immediately. I was like, okay, this is really my thing. I love programming and the problem solving aspect of it. And that combined with design was really like the key to my heart. So that's when I thought, okay, I can actually pursue this. I think I will enjoy it and find a way of how to make a living out of this. And yeah, that's when I enrolled for the bootcamp.
Oh, that's cool. I remember myself when I took a small course on HTML and CSS, and I got totally hooked. Like 10 minutes, like 1 hour felt like 10 minutes. And you're like, what? The time just flied. And it was amazing to see the actual thing happening at the same time, like the visuals. So I can really relate to that. But Vanessa, you also, I mean, you all went the front end, but you are doing full stack today.
Mm-hmm.
What does full stack mean?
So full stack is when you are not just working on the front end. So I get to work in the back end also. And right now I'm even doing DevOps and apps.
So many words.
Yeah, it's so much. But I think it got triggered, that interest, when we were doing the bootcamp, because at least the last sprint is on backend on Node. And I was like, oh, I really love this. And I started to talk to several of our coaches at Technigo and ask them like, hey, if I want to go more into backend, like, what do I have to do? So I started to teach myself about backend a bit more on my own, because I really like having a grasp of the whole process. Like, how do you connect the front end with the backend? And luckily now, when I started at Axacon, the project that I work on is really broad. When you're a developer at this project, you need to know everything. And yeah, in the beginning felt like, oh my God, it's a lot of information, but I still like knowing the process from beginning to end, like not just writing the code, but how do you put the code out there? How do you reach database? How do you build a database? I love knowing everything. So yeah, I think it first got triggered during the bootcamp. And then now when I've been working with it in real life, I see even more areas where I want to specify in, but it's just that I think that wish to know like what goes behind the scenes as well.
You are a curious soul.
Yeah.
But it feels in general that people working in programming are pretty curious.
Yes.
Maybe it's a prejudice, but that's what I've noticed when I talk to people. Henrike, what was your, like, what got you hooked into programming?
Several things. So I think, I mean, I had been curious about it for many years, actually. Like I had some friends and my brother and my mom who know programming, and it seemed like this. I mean, I thought about it as this nerdy kind of superpower thingy, and I was like, it would be so cool if I could just tell people I can do programming, and then so I tried to learn it on my own a little bit, like in my free time. But that was when I also was studying and working, and so it's like it was very low on the priority list just because of life reasons, and it never really worked out. But I was curious, and then yeah, as I said earlier, I was working as a journalist and not super happy in my job anymore, and I had learned about Tjeja Kodar, I don't know, a couple of years ago, and I think followed just the newsletters and thought it seemed interesting. And then I got to a point where I was like, okay, I have to change something about my life because I just didn't feel good at my job anymore. And then I heard about the boot camp, and that kind of felt like the right amount of dedication to actually try this thing with programming. It was like, okay, this is half a year, this is half pace. I don't have to like put all my life on top or like change everything just to do this. But it's still, I expected that within half a year I can find out if this is actually something for me or not. And I remember that when I applied for the bootcamp, we had to do this little task, like this, yeah, a bit of HTML and CSS, and already that was so cool. And I had also this thing like hours just passed and I fiddled with, and then I got it to a different color, and wow, and suddenly I had built this mini website, and that was super cool. And that's basically how it continued. So during that half a year of bootcamp and job in parallel, I realized that, well, I enjoy this coding stuff much more than the work I was still doing in parallel. And so yeah, I got hooked pretty quickly as soon as I just tried, basically.
Oh, that's really cool. I got a question on the topic. So someone's asking, hi, it sounds like all of you had a previous experience of where you realized that you're super interested in coding. What if I haven't had experience like that and have no idea if I'm going to like it or not, or if it's a good fit for me?
Good question. I wouldn't say. The thing is that when I grew up, and my dad was a web developer, he started with web development in the 90s when there wasn't any education or any books on how to even program. And I watched him, but I was like, that looks so boring. That looks so boring. I could never do that. And also, like when I went to like high school, we also had like programming, but it was like HTML and CSS. And I think that those classes was the one I hated the most, because we were sitting for 2 hours and nothing worked, and I was just deleting and redoing and deleting and redoing. So I have tried it before, but I didn't like it at all. So I think that this grew on me when I got older, because also I think that I had this view on what kind of people programs. There's a specific group of people who enjoy this, and it doesn't fit me. But I think I didn't have the supportive environment to actually hands-on learn it, if you know what I mean. And I think that if you don't even know, I would say try to do a small course. You don't have to enroll on a 6-month boot camp. You could do as Henrike told, and what my own experience, to try Tjeja Kodar. You can just do some small things and just try. And there's a lot of YouTube videos you can search for, and other websites. I'd say would just try small, bit by bit, and I think that you would know after a while if you get hooked or not.
Yeah, I think it's a really good one to try a smaller free course.
Yeah.
We do actually have one at Technigo. It's an introduction to HTML and CSS, and it's a similar one to the Tjejer kodar, like Girls Who Code. It's a network here in Sweden with the same founders of as Technigo, Hanna and Sandra. So that's what we are talking about when we say Tjejer kodar. And it's called workshop, coding workshop on our webpage. You can also send it out afterwards. You can take a look. But I mean, it is a good question. It is a big leap to take. Like you try coding in a small course and like, is this for me? How do I know? Like there's probably a lot of questions running through your mind. Yeah, maybe it's not super easy, but what should I say about that? Do you have anything to say about that?
I think that luckily this is something that you can try out for free. I started doing free courses online and I could go pretty far. I think I went to the point of learning React on my own. So I learned HTML, CSS, JavaScript. I started React, and all of this was online, just looking for tutorials for free. You just need to have a good laptop that you can run a code editor, and that's basically it. You don't really need to invest money, but time. So it's a big decision. If you want to decide, okay, should I really go into this? Luckily, you can just try it out for free, start building some websites, start doing some tutorials and see how far you go. And I think after you start going at it for like 2-3 days, you will know if this is your thing or not, and then you can decide, okay, should I invest money or time into doing a career change or not? But I would really say just try it out first, build some practice websites and make up your mind that way.
Yeah, that's a good tip. And I mean, along with the course on Technigo, you will get an invitation to our Slack, where all of us in here are in, and you can ask questions and yeah, be a part of our community basically. But we also talked about the picture of a programmer. Like my picture of a programmer when I started was like a hacker in a cellar, or not being very social. Like I couldn't see myself in that picture, kind of. Like Henrike, what prejudice did you have about programmers before you started?
Yeah, a bit of the same. I mean, that's kind of how you get programmers pictured in movies and whatnot. So I had a bit of the same idea, and also I think I had a lot of respect, because it's always also pictured as these super brains, and then code is always it's basically like a symbol for something that is very, very complicated, and it's like only the super smartest people ever will understand it and know it, and then they can basically change the world. And I don't know, and I mean, you can do a lot with code, but it doesn't have to be that complicated, and there are also easy parts of code, and I think most people would be able to understand code if they just get the right chance to, like, the right piece to start from, and an explanation, or someone just saying, hey, this is how it works. So it's I think that was one of the coolest experiences, actually, to realize that I understand this isn't rocket science, like this. It doesn't have to be this over the top complicated thing.
You don't have to be like A+ in math.
No, definitely not.
No.
I'm so bad at math.
Because I think that's one of the biggest thing I at least thought, like, I need to be really good at math. How am I gonna make, like, I like math, I'm gonna be honest, but you still have this fear. Oh, it's so logical. Like, it is logical, but I mean, at the same time, you don't sit and do, I don't know if you do that, but you don't sit and count all the day. No. Everyone's like, no.
No, it's really like the math that you might be using is not super advanced. Of course, it can vary. There might be projects where you need, depend on what you're building, but I haven't really had to go back to like high school super complex math. I think for me, it's more about how to break down a problem into steps, and come up with a good approach. Like, okay, I have this situation. I need my code to do this. How do I break down into steps and make it do exactly that thing that I wanted to do? So I think it's not so much about mathematical skills, but more really like problem solving and breaking things into steps, and just being organized. Also,
So organized is a good skill as a programmer. What what other skills are good as a how should you what should you have as a programmer, basically? What do you think, or out of your experience?
I would say patience.
That's really good.
Yeah, and if you don't have a lot of patience, well, you can learn to get patience. So that's not like a critical thing in that way, but you need to be patient, because patient towards your learning skill, like you will have a learning curve. It would take some time to get to a point where you can actually just write code just out of your head. And you need to have patience that you need to Google a lot of things, and you need to have patience that you may Google for weird stuff that doesn't have with your problem to do, and you need to have patience that you're building something and it just like building step by step, and it takes a long time to get the picture. But for me, I would say patience, and of course, like the logical thinking, being creative and curious.
Henrike, what do you think?
Yeah, patience is really good, and also actually good teamwork skills, because like in everyday life, as for me as a programmer, it's very, very close teamwork, because the application has like a back end and the front end and whatnot. So we're different people with different different skills, or different like core skills maybe, and we have to talk so much, because for the front end, if I'm building the website and deciding on, okay, where should you actually click to do something, then of course what is kind of behind also needs to know what information does the website need to, or should be displayed in the website. And so like there's so much, because there are so many kind of layers of an application that have to talk to. Basically, there are also a lot of people that take care of these layers that have to talk to each other. And then it can also be very, where you actually need like good people skills, because like people, if you have ever written a text, then maybe you know that it can be quite hard to get critique or get someone else reading your text and saying, I think you could improve this. And maybe if the people are really good in communicating, they will communicate it in a good way. But maybe they are also not so good, and they will just say, this is boring or something. And you can have a bit about the same with code. If you have written code, a lot of people get kind of strong feelings for that piece of code that they produce, because it's kind of what you did. It's like if you're a child and you've painted the picture, and this is what I did. And so there can be quite some complicated social situations when you talk about what, like the products of each other's work. So there's much more of this. I mean, in the end, everyone is just people, and so there's a lot of good social skills, I would say, you need. Yeah,
because you work with people. Or maybe you also sit alone and code, I don't know, but you also have contact with other people and work in teams, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, of course, I have these phases where I just sit down for a couple of hours and I do my stuff, but then I have to talk to my teammates again and say, okay, what is actually the next thing we need to do? Or is this already working? Or does anyone need help? Or maybe I need help with something. And then it's a lot of communicating and coordinating things.
So soft skills as well, because it's interesting, because when you do a career change, like you probably have this fear also, like, oh, I'm going to start from scratch, kind of, or like if you change from a completely different background, like what am I bringing to the table? But you bring a lot to the table, since you had a lot of like soft skills to bring to your new work. Well, how do you feel when you applied for a job? Like, what was your feeling about that?
For me, it was very clear when I came to Axacom, because we're getting more women into the company, which is really fun, but there's a lot of men to begin with, and a lot of these guys are maybe a bit similar. So when they start working here, they usually get like an education in how to talk with clients and how to communicate. And for me, that was like a no-brainer, because I was working with clients for years as a project lead and pitching stuff. So for me, it was, I don't need any education on that. That was my strong skill that I took with me. Okay, I'm very junior when it comes to programming, and I would need help, and I would need someone to support me at times, but I'm really strong when it comes to the social skills and to talk with clients and understand them and to react on their needs. So that was something that I had that was very useful as a consultant.
Yeah, I think in my case, that was quite, I remember the career coaching program helped me a lot, because I come from restaurant business. It has like absolutely nothing to do. It's not even an office job. So I was like, what can I bring to the table? Because they made it such a point that your soft skills are also quite valuable, to try to highlight that. Like, even though your job experience is not in tech, all these other things you've learned are so important. So when I was working in restaurants, I was a kitchen manager, then I was a restaurant unit manager. So I had to deal a lot with staff, fixing their schedules, or if someone gets sick, I have to call and find someone else. So I had to deal with people a lot. I had to deal with providers. I had to deal with people who's coming to check with our permissions that everything is okay. So I think that those management skills, those team building skills, and having people do things on time and when they're supposed to be doing them, that I think has come true during the interview process, and also now when I am working on my project. They have already pointed out, like, do you want to become a team lead soon? I was like, no, not yet. But yeah, this kind of things, there is no way for you to unlearn those things. So it will come true, even though it's a new environment now. My work is completely different. Still, those management skills come across, and they are really, really appreciated.
And Henrike, you talked about you were writing a lot from before.
Yeah, exactly. That was something that I hadn't really thought about before the boot camp, I think. But in the boot camp, we did something that's called code reviews that we also do in work life all the time now, where it's basically, yeah, you wrote some code and then someone else looks at it and says and tries it out, and also sees if there's anything especially good, or also some things that can be improved. And I have worked as an editor at a magazine for a couple of years, where I also dealt with texts that other freelance journalists sent in. And I did that exact thing, just on journalistic texts, and like going through and seeing, is there anything that's missing? Is there anything that could be rephrased? Is there anything that needs that is maybe a bit too long or whatnot? And so all this kind of giving feedback on a piece of work, I had practiced that so much, and I had never thought that it would be a parallel thing, but it works so much the same way in coding. And that's something that I think a lot of people that come from maybe more traditional backgrounds, that maybe have studied computer science or something, they have never really thought about that, or they really have to learn it in their work life. So that was something I think I profited a lot from. And then also as a journalist, I had to find and look for information all the time. And now even as a programmer, like half of my time is Googling for things, as the others said before, like, because you forget things, or things are new, or things have changed, and you just have to kind of, improve your Google skills, basically. That's a big thing. And that's also something that I think I brought with me, partly at least.
Yeah, I mean, it's no joke when we say that Google are your best friend.
Yes.
It is really not. Okay, we got some questions. The bootcamp that you guys studied, how long is it? I can just answer that straight away. It's 6 months. And now it's down to 22 weeks and some pre-studies for some weeks. And and also continue reading. And can you get all kinds of jobs from studying there? Like what jobs do you expect to have as a background? I have always wanted to work within tech, but I was scared that I needed years worth of experience and having to have bachelor's or master's degrees. All right, where to start? So, I mean, you work as a front-end developers and full stack. I know that some other people have gotten into other fields regarding testing and apps. So you don't have to work like purely programming, if I got it correctly. And Vanessa, you also mentioned the career coaching program before. So basically, the career coaching program is running almost at the same time as the bootcamp, and it's a program who helps you with to land a job within tech, basically. And it's concerning your LinkedIn, your portfolio. Tell me more about the career program. You know this more than me.
Yeah, for me, that was one of the points why I wanted to do the bootcamp, because I come from such a different industry that I didn't know how do I even present myself to potential employers. So there we're gonna learn. I didn't even have a LinkedIn profile. I opened it during the bootcamp in restaurant. I never used LinkedIn. So I learned how to put together a proper LinkedIn profile, how to fill it up, all the different sections, because it's really important to have like a good profile there and network. Then how to build a CV. Very important also, because my CV will only show restaurant experience. So how do you highlight your new acquired skills in tech? That we also learned. I was paired with a mentor, so everyone gets paired with a mentor that with her I could discuss interviews, do mock interviews, so train a bit for the interview process, and also how to prepare my portfolio, like showing the projects that I have been building so that they know what I'm capable of doing, and cover letters also, prepare a bit for technical interviews.
You also had some mentorship going on.
So during that time, I was paired with a girl named Mimi. She's a tech recruiter. So that was really good because she knows the whole. She's recruiting people, and I want to find you. So she could give me a lot of pointers on how to present myself on interviews, what to highlight, how to prepare my profile, like basically the LinkedIn, a good GitHub profile, and a CV. And what was also really good is that we could do test interviews so that I could practice, like, because the questions are kind of recurring. They are quite similar from interview to the other. So prepare your story, how you're gonna talk about yourself and your background.
Yeah, that program is so good, and it's for free during the bootcamp as well. You have to put time to it, though, even though you're programming at the same time and can feel not tired, but maybe, I mean, let's be honest, the bootcamp is pretty, like, how should I put the right word?
Intense.
It's intense. Yeah. Like, we're not gonna sugarcoat anything. It's an intense bootcamp for sure, and the learning curve is rocket. I hope, anonymous attendee, that you got your questions answered, and you don't need to have a bachelor or master's degree within computer science or anything like that to work in tech. And I think a lot of people think, it's too late for me to join the tech, but I mean, tech is it's happening so fast, and new languages and new whatnot, and you can jump on board this train at any time, I would say.
Yeah, I would also add to it that the industry needs a lot of different aspects. So even if you're older and have had a long career in another field, that is super important to get into tech. And being a female, non-binary, male, everyone is needed in tech. It needs to be diversified.
100% agree on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
And yeah, just in general, like there's such a lack of people, or there's such a high demand for people, and so it's, and there are a lot of self-taught people out there. So you really don't need a degree. It's much more about showing what you can and what you want to learn. Is my experience. I work at the university now. I was actually, when I applied, I was a bit hesitant because I thought like, oh well, they are the ones giving out the degrees. I'm sure they want the degree. And of course in the job ad it says like, we expect you having a degree in in computer science. And then it always says this, or how is that phrased? Or similar experience or something like that. And yeah, that's the point. So it doesn't matter, at least in my experience, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I don't have any degree either in anything, and I think I applied to several jobs where it says that you needed a degree, and I got interviews anyway. So sometimes it's just like something to put in.
Yeah.
But if you're a good fit, you're a good fit.
And you also do, I mean, at least for the majority of jobs, you have a tech test. So you are able to show your skills that way as well. All right, time is flying, but I would like to kind of end the webinar with tips from you guys for the people who are sitting here and thinking that they want to change career, or like want to dare to take the leap, or what do you want to tell them?
Sorry. I'm talking all the time. Yeah. As we already mentioned, like try free courses first, just to fill out, is this something for me? But I would say, like we mentioned, like join a community, like Technigo community. It's super important to have people around you that understands you, that understand what you want and where you're coming from. So I would say surround yourself with people who are like a bit like-minded and also hungry and motivated to change. That is super useful, because then you can also talk to someone when you get like these emotions that it's too hard, or what am I doing? So it's super important to also have someone to talk with in general, because when it comes to resources, there's a lot. So find the people and you will have the resources.
I can see that Vanessa is thinking.
Yeah, because it's basically what she said. I like I said before, just try it out, because there are so many free resources. See if it's your thing. Join a community, because you don't have to do this alone. There are so many communities out there, not just Technigo, so many local communities that include people who are wanting to do a career change, or they are just starting to learn programming, so that you have someone to discuss things with when you are stuck. And I would say to even take it further and reach out to professionals, like write to us. We don't have crazy amount years of experience, but we are already in the industry. Like talk to people who is already working as developer, or at whichever position you think like, oh, that sounds fun. Maybe I want to find out what more the day-to-day of that person looks like, to see if it's really my thing. Have some digital coffees, have like some interviews with some people, and find out what they are doing and if it's your thing. But just like try it out for free, join a community and talk to people who's already out there.
Those are really good tips. Henrike, do you agree?
Yeah, totally. And just to make that a bit more specific, maybe I joined a couple of Facebook groups beforehand. There are a lot like Teknikkvinnor. There are a lot. This is in Swedish, and another one in Swedish. That there are several ones. They're called Kodapor, and there are also several ones for just specifically female, especially if you want that kind of community. And just ask questions. And there's also in Uppsala, for example, there's like a tech women meetup. So meetup is also a place to look for, where you maybe even can meet people like physically if you're interested in that, and find that in your local wherever you live. Yeah, that's what I can think of. And then I just happened to see in the Q&A there was a question about salaries. I checked at the Swedish unions, the workers' unions. They have statistics on entry-level salaries and stuff like that. So that's my tip. Check that out. Also, especially if you're already a couple of steps further and looking for a job, and maybe having interviews. That's really good to have as a background to know what other people.
Yeah, and they probably have something similar if you're not from Sweden or want a Swedish job, for sure.
Yeah.
Really, really good tips. I can also see that I haven't answered all of your questions, but as you said also, Vanessa, if it's okay with all of you, that I share your LinkedIns, and you can connect and ask those questions to them on LinkedIn. And also I'm going to send out the Slack link so you can join our community. We are a lot of career changers in the community and happy to help you out, for sure. Thank you so much for watching this, and thank you so much, Vanessa, Lovisa, and Henrike. I could sit here for hours and just talk to you because it's so cozy and it's so interesting, and you are so cool. It's really cool to have done the leap, and yeah, I admire
Thank you for having us.
Yes.
Thank you for
thanks.
attending.
Thank you, and have a great Wednesday now, everyone.
You too.
Yes.
Bye.
Good luck to all you out there.
Good luck.
Bye bye.